tell you when I walked in. I told you you can't get fired. It's impossible.
Ah. Gotcha.
No, it's not. Not.
Never mind, we got it.
Not for me. I've already stated my position. I'm here by this.
Well, that's up to you.
I tell the board I'm going.
Nobody
It's very little bit. Good day. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. But nothing to do with against anybody. I enjoy everybody here. I think you got a good board, and I say this openly and publicly. It's a good board here. And believe it or not, it's going to come to the time when the town really needs dedication. Coming within the next 2 or 3 years, things is going to move a little bit, change, and you have experience, and that's very valuable. First item on the agenda, as Jeffrey was trying to hear what I was saying. ShopRite and Karma. Amended site plan. And a belated Happy New Year to everyone out there. Michael?
Yeah, all the necessary variances were granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals at the last Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. They got the parking size and several signs, I believe, were on the building. They changed them around and got all the variances that were necessary.
And the number of spots that you rent.
Yes.
Rich?
All engineering comments have been addressed. It's just a matter of following up with the regulatory permits, which is the New York State Stormwater Permit. I think you've done the MS4 acceptance form. It's just a matter of getting a copy of that permit number back to us. So everything else is good.
Pat?
All site planning issues have been addressed, Mr. Chairman.
Very, very good reports. But I haven't heard anything about the conversation they had up that day about the parking. Who wants to talk about it? I'm trying to get my board to talk about it first, but you don't, none?
I think you have a representative from the applicant here to address that this evening.
Okay. Good.
Meeting at the site?
Yes.
Yes. The chairman was kind enough to meet us at the site, along with Mr. Cleary, to discuss the parking and what the applicant can do in terms of alleviating some of the parking concerns that the board had for customers. The result of that meeting was that, and I believe it's on the current plans that the planning board has, is that there will be designated parking spots in the front area of the building. That would be a time limitation, I believe a 2-hour time limitation. There was one caveat to that. I think there was a little confusion. My impression at the meeting at the site was that those side spots would be most likely for employees, but not signed as employees, so that customers felt they could also park there if they wanted to. But then I think there was some conversation afterwards that were we supposed to put employee parking signs there or not? I didn't think we were.
These stalls along, with your back to the building over to the right, when you're looking out at the parking, over by that wooded area, the stalls right here. Our impression, both of us thought that the meeting was to leave those unsigned so that they could be used both by employees or customers. And that's how the plans depict it. If the board desires to have 2-hour limitation on these stalls too, that wouldn't be an issue. That was just based on what I thought our conversation was.
And again, the point of the 2-hour limitation, obviously, is so that the employees would not park there because they have to work for longer than 2 hours. So those being left up to customers.
Well, you have done something. Does the board understand what we're talking about?
I have a question though, and I don't know if anybody here can answer it. Sorry. If we put up signs that say 2-hour parking, can the Carmel Police Department enforce that? Or what is the,
Can I answer that first?
please?
I don't think we legally can do that. I don't think so. You can't put up, you can't see, I'm filling in for the attorney. You can't put up that, and I think we kind of weighed off the thing a little bit. I think the last thing that I said that day, this is why I want the board to kind of weigh in on it, because it may have a different opinion, is you can't say to those employees, you know, you can't park out here. Yeah. Some kind of way we got to get people to understand. When we can't designate it, we talk about many things. We can't designate it that it's for the elderly, like me. You can't do those things. What we was going to try to do was to have, we can, I think, legally designate, the company can designate employees parking. Isn't that true?
We can, but we can't mandate that.
No, not the town. The employer can.
The employer has a union of employees where it becomes somewhat of a union issue.
That's okay, but that's for him to work it out through negotiation.
Correct. So how we worked that out was putting a time limitation.
But I think the way you're leaving it, it's nothing that nobody can pursue and say you're going to do this, you're going to do that. It's never going to move one way or the other unless it's more firm than that. I think it has to get a commitment.
Well,
What
it's on
has
the
to
site
be?
plan. It would be a site plan violation not to have that signage there.
The planning board, I don't know whether the town can restrict certain people from parking in open parking places.
The applicant can voluntarily do whatever they choose to do. We couldn't enforce it on their property, so we can limit 2-hour parking. They can put 2-hour limit signs all over the place. Mike can't enforce that. Our police department certainly can't enforce that. If it's a condition of your approval because there's an environmental impact associated with it,
But don't have
becomes
that.
enforceable to a certain degree, but it's very, very difficult to do that. And Mike's certainly not going to spend his time enforcing parking limitations.
And I would write the violation to the owner of the property anyway, which is the other issue.
Now, just one other thing. Dave, in your years that I have known you, you had some experience in this.
So here's one thing I think about, right? So, again, I'm kind of torn here a little bit because I understand this is a planning issue, right? And it is a planning issue to an extent, but it's really a ShopRite issue because.
That's correct.
Because
I just
if
said
you
that.
can't park at ShopRite, you're not gonna shop at ShopRite, right? So essentially, it's incumbent on you folks to figure out a way to get the people out of the front of that store. Now, I made, after our last meeting, I'm a little crazy, but I spent a little time in the parking lot over there, just kind of see what's going on. And what happens is all of that parking clusters on that western or northern side of that parking lot, and the whole rest of the place stays wide open. So whether, you go to BJ's down in Yorktown, that little sign there that says for women and small children, again, how enforceable that is, right? If somebody parks there that doesn't have a woman or a small child, there's not much you can do about it. And if you watch people do park there that don't have women and small children, but you guys are gonna have to figure out a way to get your employees, you guys, but certainly ShopRite's gonna have to figure out a way to, either run incentives or whatever, to get those cars that are sitting there. Because you go there early in the morning, right? And I did that. You go there like when they open, a lot of people are first pulling in, I'm parking right next in front of the store. Right? Probably 30 spaces right off the bat.
That's a very good point, a very good comparison. I think the employee parking, the 2-hour time limitation parking would be much easier to enforce by the store than the women and children or the, pregnant women signs.
Again,
Because they know who their employees are, and they know who the cars are.
The other thing is you're not the only game in town, right? There are a lot of nice shopping centers or, grocery stores, if you will, right? It's pretty close proximity, so if you don't do it,
their
people have to go down a wall, go down a road where they can park.
But wouldn't we still be better off trying to get the employees to park in a less desirable spot, like maybe in the back of the building, just so there's more business that can go to the front of the building? I mean, if you put the 2-hour parking, I'm not sure how enforceable it is today.
There is.
You have to tell the employees, listen, you want to be employed a month, and I can give them some money, whatever it is, right? You got to give them incentive to move, I would think, right?
There is an employee parking, they are signed over in this area. Those are, every time I've been there, I know, you might have had a different experience the times that you're there, but when I'm there, there are a lot of cars parked here. And the only reason anyone would park there is if they were an employee. If you're a customer, unless you really want to walk up to the store for some reason, you're not going to park there. So it does seem like it is getting used by employees. I can't say if every single one of them parks there, but most of them do just by this signage that's there now, and I think that'll be reinforced by the addition of this 2-hour parking
I think
limitation.
here's the thing with employee parking signs, and having experienced it before, employee parking signs don't require, they're not read as requiring employees to park there. They're read as customers are not allowed to park there because it's designated for employees. And that's the discussion we had, and that's why we decided probably not a good idea to put employee parking signs up. We'll put the time limitation this way they can't, park
I
in that.
tend to agree with you. In fact, I just had this on, I watched the town board meeting the other night, right? One of the councilmen said, listen, don't take my name down, don't put my name on the sign. Once you put that sign out there, right, then nobody's gonna park in that spot, you lose the spot. So I think that makes perfect sense, not to sign it, but if you don't figure out a way, you're never gonna expand your market if you don't figure out a way to get these folks out of that left side. And if you go there early in the morning, my experience is, and again, it may be people that are working overnight, or whatever, maybe they leave after a little while,
Stocking
I don't know.
shelves.
But there's a lot of people, early in the morning, there's a lot of spaces taken up in that lot, even though there's not, still a lot of spaces left, but there are a lot of spaces that are filled. I would think they're not shoppers, they're somehow have something to do with the management or the stocking the store or whatever it is, right? So, I don't know, I don't know what to tell you, I don't know how it's really.
Now, common sense, nothing drastic. This common sense will tell you that if you don't make the employee, the owners, doesn't make it a little bit difficult for the employees to park, find a place to park, they're gonna park where it's closest to get into that building at. To tell the employees to come right here in the front of that store there and park, the employees are gonna have a tough time finding a spot because people are gonna park there too. As you get filled up, they're gonna move over there. You gotta get them out of there. I told you that day, you gotta get the employees to a point that's a little bit inconvenienced for them. And that's a union thing you gotta work with. You can't work with the planning board or something. But what we're trying to stress is because we are thinking about the public. That's our job, to try to make it easy for the public to get and utilize these
Our
things.
conversation at the site and your concerns as expressed to us at the site with what you're restating now was discussed with the applicant, the store owner, and they understand it, and it's an issue they've been aware of before this and are aware of now, and understand that it's going to be something that's required, looked at by the town, and they're gonna take measures to enforce it.
I like the BJ's approach better, and either it's, senior parking or, people with the assistants, strollers, whatever it is, I think that, again, that'll work to a degree. Most people will honor that, right? They'll stay out of those spaces and leave them, so at least somebody that doesn't move too well can get in and out of that store. I think, I don't know.
We're not gonna hold you up, but could we get one more shot at it with the owners? I don't want another shot at it, but I have an idea of 2 people on this board that I'd like to, if they would, to give it a shot. Because there's a lot of legal stuff in there that you can do and you can't do when you make this. And I think if that all comes out in the open and we get a chance to talk to them, could we have that chance?
I don't know, what are we being asked to do? I'm not sure.
Just meet with them. Meet with the board. And see, can we get some kind of agreement that would help
Saying
the
a site
public?
meeting, another site meeting.
Yes. It don't have to be on the site. It can be it can be right in this building.
Okay. It was cold last time.
I wonder if these
Well,
are,
you better help us out. We wanna meet with the people from ShopRite, right? You want the people that are managing the store
That has the,
running operations, and no offense to you guys, you're professionals, you're gonna put your snap on and go, right?
and I think you have done a good job. You have done what you can, but I think we need to go with the next step.
If you're more close to those guys than I am, is that something we can arrange?
Yeah, I believe so.
And I think it would be useful, again, Anthony, one of the things you said out in the field was that there were union limitations. You didn't know what they were necessarily. We certainly don't. The store manager may. So if we can meet with some of the folks from the store themselves, they may be able to be more productive in the kinds of limitations we could have.
Answer questions.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, just to go back to what you said before, the vehicle and traffic law, section 1100, section B provides that a local municipality would have to pass a law in order to have the law enforcement enforce a sign situation.
park in the fire lane, we could hit that too. I think we can hit that.
Correct, because that's a traffic control.
That's
place.
correct.
But, Joe, appreciate that. But I think we're trying to get something that voluntarily,
Correct.
that if we could get, don't have to be a whole lot, just 2 members on the board. Because it's more than just what we're talking about here. It's got what you can do legally, what you can't do, what you can request the town to help you with.
We want to lay out all the options.
We got to lay out all the options. And I'm sure we have a couple of members on the board who wouldn't mind spending a little time on that.
Okay, so that could be a meeting here at Town Hall.
Anywhere that
Community shop, right, that helps.
Shop right.
anywhere that they want to meet. I'm a cold weather person. I can't stay. Thank you so much. Anything else, Pat?
No,
Contact Rose for that.
yeah, we'll arrange it.
But you won't forget that. You'll set that up. And before we leave here tonight, after we close the meeting, we will have a couple of members who will be willing to spend some time. And I want to tell you while you're thinking about it, it's not just a little easy thing to do. Can be a little time consuming. Yeah.
And just, it wasn't brought up, but Vincent has signed off on the architecture for this already. We have his last memo, and his correspondence this week was he was satisfied, no change.
So aside from the parking issue, where are we in the process?
We're absolutely ready for public hearing. Yep.
And we're scheduled at the when is the next meeting?
24th of January. Yeah.
We're scheduled a public hearing on the 24th.
We'll schedule a public hearing on the 24th.
Unless it's something that you want to work out with that parking so that if it comes up, and it could come up, very well come up, we got an answer. And they know that the board is working to try to get forward. So maybe you could get something that could set up, could move it along a little bit. And
Yeah, I
we,
think we'll set up the meeting as soon as possible to get that resolved.
okay. Thanks a lot.
Rose will be back in the office on Tuesday. She had a loss of the family, so she's out this week. So on Tuesday, you'll be able to reach out and set up an appointment with planning board members. And whatever, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to overstep my bounds, but whatever three planning board members there are, you know, you might want to let Rose know that you are going to be people.
And that is true, but I want the board to think about it for a while too.
Understood.
Let them think about it for the rest of the meeting.
So I didn't want to overstep my bounds, I do apologize.
And see who hangs around.
So
Thank-
wants to hang out tonight?
We'll tell, we'll,
We'll call it.
What you want to hang around for?
they're not. They were saying, do they have to hang around? They don't have to hang around to see who's going to be our designated people.
None of it. We do things in secret.
As long as
You
it's
can
positive, Mr.
feel free
Chairman.
to stay around if you want to.
But if you want to stay around, it won't be long. Why don't you just stay around and we can stay, and maybe those two people want to, who says it's going to be two? It could be three. 2 or 3 people may want to talk to you about it. And then you can set up your, where you want to meet at what time, and where. Is that agreeable? Okay, thank you.
And we'll be on for the 24th?
Yes.
You're on for 20.
Very good. Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil.
I'll get it done now.
Okay.
What has to be done.
Thanks a lot. Hudson Valley Credit Union.
We're going to do the subdivision.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 3, the Baldwin subdivision. Michael?
The applicant proposes to perform a lot line adjustment for the lots on Route 6 in Mahopac, known as file map number 3188. The submission does not meet the requirements for a lot line adjustment as 15661 M3E. You can't be over 20% or 20,000 square feet of area and use the lot line adjustment, so he just has to go through the standard subdivision process. Remove the words lot line adjustment from the bottom right corner and appears the existing variances that were granted back 2 ago are enough. They're okay, it looks like, but once we get this map fully submitted and corrected, I'm sure it'll be fine. The numbers are actually bigger on the smaller lots.
It's not folder ready, it's not folder ready?
Well, right now it's labeled lot line adjustment, and our code only allows 20,000 square feet of area to be swapped for a lot line, and there is a lot more than that being swapped.
So it's the title of the drawing has to be changed.
Correct.
Okay.
And he just has to go through the process of subdivision, not lot line.
Rich?
Outside of Mike's comments, which he had advised me after my memo was done, but I had no, the engineering department had no comments regarding the lot line adjustment.
So, Mr. Chairman, this was, some of you may remember this project started out with this configuration before it was amended to create 2 lots instead of the 3 lots. So very early on, when Retail 6 was the one building and the theoretical bank was the second building, the 3rd lot was in play in the rear portion of the property. As Mike indicated, variances were granted for those 2 lots in 2016, I think. The applicant chose to abandon that plan and came back with 2 larger lots and not the 3rd lot that was being contributed to the adjacent Baldwin Hills property. So they're going back to the original plan, and Jeff will explain the reasons for that, but it was basically to allow access opportunities for the county and for the adjacent Kohler Center, which again, you've heard about before. So all of that was where this sort of originally started, and we're reverting back to that now. Mike's point is sort of semantics, so it's nothing for the board to worry about. The process is essentially the same for the lot line adjustment and the amended subdivision anyway, so they still have to go through the public hearing process. It literally is the title of the drawing that's changing and how we recognize this on our agenda, so it doesn't affect our review, our technical review in any way. As Michael indicated, those variances were granted for that lot, which we'll talk about in a bit. The only technical comment I had with respect to this was all of the things that we're talking about with respect to vehicular access to the Kohler Center, the trailway access, that should be codified one way or another. Are there easements? Are there designations of that are reflected on the plan? That should happen sooner or later.
Good evening, Jeff Cantelmo from Insight Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture. Yeah, we're back with a plan that was before you back in late 2016 and early 2017. And if you recall, this is the Baldwin subdivision where recently the PCSB Banks branch was built, and there were some improvements made to Route 6 via Signal. The subdivision kind of flipped around a couple times before you guys, and you guys actually reviewed this exact version of it. And as Mike and Pat indicated, we went and got variances for this to allow us to create a 1-acre lot and a 3-acre lot in lieu of a 1-acre lot and a 2-acre lot in lieu of the 3-acre minimum lot requirement. And that was based on a desire by the applicant to preserve some space for a future rail trail that's been talked about by the county, as well as future access to the rear of the property, as well as future access to the Putnam County Housing Corp. And Kohler Center, which are to the north. And we had shown you guys the reasons why we wanted to configure the lots the way we had, and you referred us to the ZBA. We were successful at the ZBA, and then there was an Article 78 filed against the town, which kind of stayed this plan. At the time, the applicant had pressure on him to deliver the PCSB bank site, so we put this aside and we pursued a subdivision that was conforming, and we're dealing with 13 acres. So we created a 3-acre lot around the PCSB parcel, and then we took the other 10 acres and held that for what is our Lot 2 property. This shows that configuration here. So that's a configuration that you guys approved in August. We filed that map. Those are the lot configurations right now. So we have a 3-acre lot with PCSB bank on it and a 10-acre lot, which is our Lot 2, which has an approved site plan, which we call Route 6 Retail. We're going to talk shortly about Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union, who's now the user to go on that lot as we seek to amend it. You'll recall there's 172 acres to the rear, and the plan that you reviewed back in 2016 was the plan that we're now back with, which now creates PCSB on a 2-acre lot with the variances that have already been granted, creates a 1-acre lot which had the Route 6 retail on it, which now is going to have an amended site plan for the Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union. And the proposal was to append the remaining 10 acres to the 172 acres to the rear, making it a 182-acre parcel. There was also a proviso in the decision order from the ZBA and a willingness by the applicant to put a restriction on the balance of the 10 acres such that it wouldn't be developed for commercial purposes. It was reserved for roads, utilities, bikeway, trails, recreation, that type of stuff. So as Pat noted, part of our application now is to create the 2 lots we've discussed and also create some additional easements. So what we've created via easements with the new plan is an easement that will provide for access to the north, which can accommodate the Kohler Center and the Putnam County Housing Corp rental apartments, allow for future extension of the roadway, if and when that would happen, and put the reservation on the 10 acres, reserving it in the form that the zoning board saw it as part of their decision in order. So, you know, I know this subdivision has gone back and forth. Some of that is out of our control. When the decision was made challenging the town's zoning decision, the applicant had to pick a direction, which he did. He followed through with that. He filed that map. We got the PCSB bank constructed along with the road improvements, and now we're back and we want to take advantage of what we thought was a better planning scenario for the establishment of the lots, and also introduce our new partner who wants to develop Lot 2 in a very similar fashion to what was approved for the Route 6 retail. So I know that's a long story and it's complicated and seems a little crazy, but that's what's basically taken place over the last 2 years, because this all started in late 2016. So if you have questions, I'll gladly answer them.
I have a question. Going way back, on Lot 2, there was a retail building presented to the board, which kind of fit in with the direction that the town wants to go in.
Right.
And I think that was a big part of why we agreed to the whole. So I'd like a little more information on what's going on Lot 2. I see that it's going to be Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union. What type of building? Is it going to conform to what we?
Yep, they're going to show you right after I'm done. So just to bring that back and forward, which is a good question, what we got approved on that lot was what we call Route 6 retail. It was intended to be some type of retail or service type of establishment. We did not have a user at the time, but we did cite a conforming 5,000 square foot building along with the requisite parking, a drive-through, and arranged it in a way that made sense with everything that you guys have taken a look at. I believe what you're going to see shortly from Roger and the project architect is a plan for HVFCU that looks very similar to that Route 6 retail. It's arranged very much the same with the parking in the front, the building a very similar location. All of its utilities will hook up in a similar manner. Its access will be in a similar manner. So it's really following through on what I think your point is, and that is that there was a master plan envisioned here, and there would be a certain type and style of development that would take place. And I think when they show you the details of that, you'll see that, in fact, they're falling right into place with what you guys worked hard with us on to come up with that solution.
Is the trailway, will we see anything about the trailway still in the master plan? Because we had discussions about the trailway.
Yeah, unfortunately, the trailway is the one part of this that's out of our control, okay? The development of Lot 2, the extension of the road, that easement going into Kohler Center, those discussions have gotten to be more serious. They have extreme interest, as does the applicant. So we think we're not far away from having an agreement on that. They'll come back and talk to you about that. That's on them. But the trailway actually lies with the state and the county. And as we represented last time we were here, the state and the county have put a fair amount of thought into the trailway system, and it's envisioned across Route 6, come along what is an old rail bed that lies to the north of the pond and comes right through the middle of our property. So again, I think in spirit of good planning, what's been done here preserves that opportunity, but unfortunately, there's not much more we can do except wait and work with them as they advance.
Preserve, because we talked about that, right, preserving it so it is still preserved.
What changes here, Jeff, from when you came, when you went and got the variances, right? And we sent you the variances, right? What's changed from that to this? It's the
Same plan. There are very small changes in the property line, but you wouldn't notice them. They're just, to account.
This is essentially that same
That's correct.
project that we sent you to go get variances, and you were coming,
Right.
basically coming back around on that, whatever it is.
Right, our variances were granted in December of 2016. So this is, we're going back in time,
The variances that were granted were actually better than what you need.
right?
So they have more than what they actually got a variance, so they will not have to go back for those variances.
No issues, well, not for the parking variance, on the parking variance.
Right.
Size, yeah.
Yeah, that's not on us, that's actually on site plan, but the one thing I want to clarify, and, we fully agree with Mike's interpretation of the code and what the code recognizes as a quote-unquote lot line adjustment. He's correct, we do not fit within that because we're moving more land. But I want to be perfectly clear that we're not creating any more lots. We're a lot line adjustment in small letters. We're not a lot line adjustment in the code in large letters. We don't meet that definition, but all we're doing is moving lot lines. We're coming in with 3 lots, and we're leaving with 3 lots. We're just moving the lot lines around, right? Because we're starting with a 3-acre lot, a 10-acre lot, and a 172-acre lot, and we're ending up with a 1-acre lot, a 2-acre lot, and a 182-acre lot.
It's easy for me to understand that basically, this is a continuation of the variance plan, right?
It's the same plan, right?
The one that was
Just following
challenged,
through on that.
the
Correct.
one that was challenged in court,
Right.
and we actually won.
Surprising.
Surprisingly, I said we won.
I'm sorry, what I was thinking. This is reverting back to a plan,
They're reverting back.
they're reverting back to a plan that was contested in the past.
They came in front of our board, this board, got denied to the zoning board.
Yep.
Zoning board granted the variances
For this.
for basically this.
Yes.
Something very simple.
Yeah.
The variances were granted. Somebody did an Article 78 against those variances, challenged the decision.
Okay.
Instead of waiting for the whole appeal process to go through, they decided to make the lots conform to code and come back with conforming lots and then build what they had to build.
They were able to build it back in.
And then in the meantime, we got the decision where we surprisingly won the, where we won the decision in order, and it was upheld.
Yeah, so basically, Carl,
So the Article 78 that did go through and was filed, and the town.
Won.
And won that
It
without.
was upheld, yeah, our decision was proper.
Right, so
Yeah,
the variances are intact
Still
and in place.
intact. There's been no appeal. Yeah, there's no more time anyway.
and to just appropriately characterize it, the zoning board made a decision. The decision was challenged by a third party out of town. The court found and upheld the decision of the zoning board, so it's in full force and effect. So, again, we thought the zoning board made a reasoned decision, the courts now agree, and, we're moving forward with our right to pursue this plan.
And I think if we go back in time, I think Craig's got it right. We kind of like this plan a little better because it preserves some recreation.
That's exactly right.
We basically get a better shot at some recreation here, right? Some rail trail, a pond.
That was a big deal for us, and-
So it's actually better. This is probably the better scenario I've written down.
But that was already in place with the.
So we never got to the point of final approval of this subdivision. So they abandoned that when the legal troubles
The one
occurred.
that was approved.
But it
Too
wasn't in place
Also
because,
had,
because then remember the bank had control, that would be part of Putnam National's, part of, right, that would be part of their lot.
And our biggest concern, right, that's exactly right. Our biggest concern was that the bank wouldn't care about all the commitments they had made with respect to preserving that area. They're a bank, what do they care? And they would renege on those commitments in one way or another. And frankly, from Jeff, they had said, we don't want to deal with any of that. So we kind of reluctantly acknowledged that. We're going to hold their feet to the fire, but it was going to be difficult to do that. Much easier to do it in this configuration.
I'm not saying nothing, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Yes, I do, I'm just kidding. Any more questions?
I just wanted to confirm, you said the land that's going to recreation over there, right, that's be untouched going forward once this plan gets approved, right?
Yeah, so again, the difference between the variance plan and the plan you approved was, as part of the variance plan, the applicant agreed to put a reservation on the 10 acres balance. So we have 1 acre, 2 acre, and 10 acres. And as part of the ZBA decision and order, it was conditioned on the applicant's offer to put a restriction on the 10 acres that it wouldn't be further developed beyond recreational or road and utility type of improvements. And so that, our variance comes with that requirement, and we're perfectly willing, we're complying fully with that. Right.
Yes.
So the
Any
board,
condition.
Should we memorialize that in the site plan as well?
It will be, we'll have notes on the plans in addition to the files. Yeah,
I just want to make sure.
we'll
That's
make
why I
sure
asked
we've
the
got
question.
belts and suspenders on that.
Yeah, and Dave, just to answer your question, it really doesn't apply to the site plan, which is on the 1 acre lot, because there's no restrictions on the 1 acre lot. It applies to the subdivision in the 10 acre portion, right, right.
So, but the lower do put it as part of subdivision, right?
Yeah,
That keeps me saying.
it's true.
Yeah, it's on our plan now.
So the board is aware, though, you know, that 10 acres is mostly a pond in New York State DEC regulated wetland. So in the grand scheme of things, it's great that they're going to conserve it, and we're happy with that.
But there's not much you can do.
But they wouldn't have been able to do much with it anyway. So the board has a concern about it, you know, getting this memorialized, and that's important to have. But the memorialization is already there by the fact that the site features that are there. That's what I
Based on
wanted
a,
to get.
based on the regulations that you have
Correct.
now, you
Correct.
have hard,
You
you're
know,
hard
so-
pressed to build in that spot anyway.
So you have a double, you're going to get it memorialized with the drawing as you're
But if you
asking
wanted to put a
for.
building there, you probably couldn't anyway.
The most likely, nothing's impossible in this world, but I mean, you know.
It'd be very difficult.
Okay, but I have a little bit different question. If the acreage is reabsorbed into the other lot,
Yeah.
then the number of units theoretically in some sort of cluster on a larger lot could be more in a more concentrated area than 172 acre lot, right? If it's, I don't know, right? Isn't the number of units per lot a function of the land area of the lot? And whether you do, we had seen one over here on,
It's part of the calculation.
Correct.
Lot area is part of it.
so if they do a cluster development there, they're gonna get more units by adding this 10 acres back in.
But remember,
to that.
there's also the deduction of environmentally constrained lands, which is mostly this. You're right
We
about
don't have
that.
the environmental map.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, so to answer your question, the only time we think that would come into play, it wouldn't come in on a conventional subdivision because we have to prove out the lots. As Rich has pointed out, there's restrictions. If you went with a senior housing application of 8 units per acre, right? We have almost 300 acres in total there. Okay, we're only allowed 150 units. I mean, so there's no, I can tell you that based on all of the planning we've done, and we've been on this project since 2002, there's been no talk and no indication or no effect. That 10 acres absolutely doesn't affect any of the numbers. When you start looking at the other limiting factors, right? You do the math, 8 times 250 is 1,000. You know, that ain't happening, and 8 times 10 is 80, and you're not gonna get 1,008. You know, the numbers, there are other limitations with traffic and sewer and water, and there's no end around game here to add acreage to pick up density. I mean, I would go as far as to say that, you know, I could bring it before the applicant to say, put a note on the plan that the 10-acre reservation area can't be used for the purposes of density, if that's a concern. You know, I can't commit to that this evening, but I certainly can bring it back to him and ask.
Why not?
I don't know whether it's a concern, but certainly consideration.
Well, yeah, why not? So the only issue always with this really was the driveway connection and the provision of the light at that location. That was the piece of this land that was contributing to the Union Place development. It wasn't the territory. So Jeff's absolutely right about that.
But why would we want to limit that anyway?
Limit what?
Why would we want to put that condition on? Are we, I mean, is there a problem with the number of units? Nobody knows what's going there yet.
Yeah.
It may be something that he may need just to get something silly, just say. And
Well,
he can't use it now. You know what I mean?
You can't worry about that. If you're gonna worry about that, then you're giving the lawyer a good case to work on. So just leave it alone. No offense, Joe.
That's a second shot.
Because this board's obligation is not, I understand what Carl's talking about. They can't limit something that the law requires that can happen. See? So your best shot at limiting it is when it happens. Then you have a reason to limit it. To get him to put it on the map is just like saying he's wasting his ink.
Fair enough.
Okay. Question.
Yes, sir.
The road's going up to the senior development. Why?
Why is it going there?
Yeah.
Well, there's been talk between the applicant and the county for quite some time on that, based on a safety concern with the current driveway from the Kohler Center and the Putnam County Housing Corp.
You answered the question. They're going to get rid of that driveway coming down to the road?
Their existing driveway to Route 6?
Yeah.
I do not believe the plan would be to eliminate that, but that's not with me. I think.
Well, it's a consideration for this board, because they don't want 3 or 4 major entrances coming out on that road, right in that one little area.
And I think that's.
It's very congested right now for the amount of stuff that's going there.
Right. So, what I would think what would happen is when they come back to amend their site plan and make that connection, that would be the time to discuss that. And what the traffic gurus might tell you, and I'm not a traffic guru, is to make that a right in, right out, and then bring the left movements through the signal, and there'd be a safer arrangement that way. But again, that's up to them, the DOT and traffic gurus and you guys. We're providing for the opportunity for that to happen by the grant of the easement.
Okay. Any more questions?
They need to,
Change the map.
yep, revisions to the map need to be made. We don't need to get back to zoning.
Not for this, he doesn't need to.
So public hearing's the next step.
Oh, and if you could put the conditions of the variance on the map, that
Will
would
do.
help.
Yeah, what we, just for clarity, we were deemed a minor subdivision before. We view it as a continuance as minor subdivision, which allows us to go right to final public hearing. We'd appreciate if the board would consider scheduling a hearing. We'll relabel the map in accordance with Mike's suggestion and add the note relative to the restriction.
24th.
Okay, thank you very much. Now that you heard all the ugly stuff, you're gonna get this, to hear the pretty stuff about, Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union. We're working alongside Chase and Associates and Roger Keatings here this evening, along with representatives of the Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union and the architects. So I'm gonna turn the show over to them, and just be clear that they're talking about, the Lot 2, the 1 acre lot, formally approved for Route 6 retail, and Roger does have the old site plan, so you can actually see the similarities in what they followed in terms of some of the earlier planning we did with you guys. So with that, Roger.
Turn it around there.
Good evening.
Good evening. Like Jeff said, Roger Keating from the Chazen Companies.
Do you folks need to give a report before he
That's
starts?
what I was wondering, if you want to do your
Do you
report.
need to say anything before he starts?
I'll read my memo if you like.
Yes.
Thank you.
The applicant proposes a bank and related parking on this property. The elevation has been submitted, and Vincent Franz should be reviewing this for architectural comments. And there are two variances required from the zoning board of appeals. The minimum floor area, 5,000, they have a 3,800 square foot building, so a 1,200 square foot variance, and parking stall size, 10 by 20 is required, they're doing 9 by 18.
Rich?
The original version of this encompassed a 5,000 square foot building on a 3.2 acre site located at 150 Route 6. This application encompasses a proposal for a 3,800 square foot Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union on a 1.04 acre site. Referrals and permits would be necessary. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, New York City Department of Environmental Protection for stormwater, Putnam County Department of Health for their sanitary and water, Mahopac Fire Department for referrals. There's stormwater pollution prevention plan requirement. I have a bunch of more detailed comments that I can forward to you directly that the board has a copy of. Parking agreements and easements for site access should be provided. One big thing was bottom and top of wall elevations. They need to be provided, and just so you know, any wall elevation greater than 5 foot must be certified by a structural engineer. Graphic representation of vehicle movements on the site should be provided. And after that, there's a bunch of other minor comments, but you can have them when I send it to you.
Thank you.
Again, as Jeff said before, very similar to the Route 6 retail project that you approved previously. Smaller building this time around, but about the same location. My recollection was the access to this building is provided from the new roadway that's been created. I recall in the last one, there was a single means of access into the site. This new one has two means of access. Oh, there were two. Okay.
Sorry about that. There was two located on the previous
So
one.
back to where we are, circulation around the building, now, we can look at the current one. There were 2 drive-through lanes to the old building, which was an unknown use. Now we have a definitive client, so there are 3 drive-through lanes, and a clearance lane around the back side of that, which is a benefit. Plenty of movement through there. We won't see backups and conflicts with respect to the way it's been configured. The big issue with this building has always been, as it was with the last building, and as you can see it on this particular rendering clearly, is that the building is set back off Route 6. That puts the parking in front. You see a big parking lot and the building set back. If the building were shifted closer to Route 6, sort of in line with the other one, you can disguise or hide a bunch of that parking behind the building. That may create conflicts with their circulation around the drive-through, however, but we repeat the comment for the sake of repeating the comment. Again, one of our concerns with Route 6 is the aesthetics of Route 6. So not only do we want to make sure the buildings are attractive, but the sites are set up so that they maximize all that good stuff on the site as well. So we raised the comment. It didn't stick last time. I don't know if it'll stick this time, but we'll keep throwing it out there. As Mike indicated, the off-street parking on this, they are over-parked. Their parking requirement is something like 19 spaces. They have about 26 on the site. Spaces are, they're seeking the size of the parking spaces, but it's laid out in a configuration that's nice and orderly, so the smaller spaces don't necessarily create conflicts. If it were a tight site or unusually configured, you had difficulty maneuvering, that might raise a problem, but that's not the case here. These are nice double-loaded bays, plenty of circulation, so it works okay. I don't really have a significant objection to the smaller parking space sizes in this case. Building aesthetics, Vincent should take a look at this. One of the comments we had last time was about HVAC equipment and building mechanicals. Wasn't quite sure where that was going. The ability to tuck it underneath the roof or something like that is something we'd want to see them paying attention to. I'm sure you have, but it just wasn't clear in the plans how you were dealing with that. There's a generator in the back, not sure if it was physically screened, if it was sound attenuated, so some details on the generator would be helpful. And the landscaping at the Route 6 frontage perhaps could be bolstered a little bit. There was some attractive landscaping around their monument sign. But again, if we've got a big parking lot in the front, we want to make sure we're screening the unpleasant view of the parking lot to the extent we can. They do have nice plantings inside the parking lot, which is nice, but that green stretch on Route 6, we may want to bolster that landscaping a bit. Those are my comments. It could.
How high is the wall?
We have 2 retaining walls, but we're keeping them underneath the requirements for.
Under 6 feet?
Yeah, so there's 2 there.
So they'll be 6 feet apart?
I don't remember what the spacing is, but you'll have a
They have to
height,
be
and
at
then there's
least-
a landscape buffer between the 2 walls and then the next
They
one.
have to be at least as far apart as they are tall.
Okay, we can accommodate
That's
that,
fine.
though. Thank you for the comment.
Otherwise, it becomes one wall,
Understood. Thank you.
and then
We'll make sure we get the separation on
we
there.
don't want it to be a structure where you have to get another variance.
Understood.
Or if you need it, let's get it now while you're going for variance.
Correct. Thank you.
Your show.
My show. Okay. Well, once again, as Jeff said, Roger Keating from the Chazen Companies. I have Jay from Ori Architects here tonight as well, so he can talk a little bit about the building. As Jeff said, we did take into consideration the work that was taking place previously as part of the site plan approval that his office had gone through. And as you can see, that we've stayed true with the general location of the building, the circulation that was talked about, with keeping in kind the 2 access points, having 1 dedicated access for the drive-through in the rear. And generally, what we're doing is we're providing a smaller building footprint. We may have some more parking spaces than what was previously proposed. However, our impervious cover is less for the overall development, so we actually have more green space than what was previously proposed. And you're correct in that our access points will be off of the driveway that was newly constructed, that has access to the signal along Route 6. Similar to what we've done here in town before, we had a branch that was located, just to give you a point of reference, that branch over on Stone Lane Terrace was around 5,000 square feet. We had 40 parking spaces. So this is a little bit smaller than what you've seen over there, with the 3,800 square feet and the 35 spaces that we have shown. We did take into consideration the placement of the building. I appreciate the comment because we did a lot of site plan work to see how we could look at options to bring the building forward. But we do have a little bit of a pinch point at the front, and it does create a little bit of some difficulty to be able to fit even a 3,800 square foot building up front there. The other nice thing about the way the site lays out here is, I want to point out, is that we have really good separation from pedestrians and the drive-through. We went with a little bit reduced stall size so that we didn't have to look at putting parking spaces in the rear. So as you can see with the way this layout works is that we have all our pedestrians that are going to be walking to and from the building in the front, and anything that's happening with the drive-through, with the exception of the employees that would have to maybe use the dumpster or something along those lines, really not seeing any pedestrians having to interact with the drive-through. It's a great separation, and it really flows well with the way the circulation works, with the site, to allow this to function in the front and that to be separate from the back. So I appreciated your comment because it's tying in with some of the things that we looked at as part of it. So generally speaking, what we're looking at is a little bit less of the thresholds that were previously proposed as part of the last site plan. And I think we're generally consistent with what was previously proposed, and that's why we're seeking the amendment to the site plan based upon the plan that we have tonight. So what I'll do is really briefly just turn it over to Jay so that he can give you a brief overview of the building. It does look similar to our branch that's over on Stone Lane and Terrace Avenue. However, there are some new things that Jay can talk about with respect to the building, so I'll turn it over. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jay Deasing. I'm with Mori Architects. As it's been mentioned, this is about a 3,800 square foot building. It's a 1-story building, traditional hip roof style structure. It is a similar look to what we built over in Stoneleigh a few years back. A few notable differences. The main facade of the building, this is the east facade that faces out to Route 6. We have a return gable structure here at the entrance of the building with some decorative columns, and that provides also an area for some signage to help designate the entrance. And then also you'll notice on the at the top of the roof there, we have a neat feature. There's clear story windows that let natural daylighting down into the main lobby of the branch. Then the drive-through structure, as was pointed out on the site plan, is out onto the back of the building. The building itself is finished with it's a ground-faced architectural masonry material. So I do have samples of that here. The building on Stoneleigh was more of a traditional red brick with a stucco finish on the building. So each branch we make a few tweaks and changes and improvements. So this is a material that we've used on a couple branches now that's really sharp. So it's going to be a two-tone. You'll see the darker materials at the base of the building, and then as you get up closer to the roof, it's a little bit of a lighter stone. Then as that stone approaches the roof, there's a nice tall stucco cornice that wraps around the building. And then the roof itself is finished it's a standing seam metal roof, very similar to what's over on Stoneleigh. Yeah, absolutely.
I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Can you take that down a minute? Now, I'm going to ask the question that the planner asked before. Why is that building sitting back so far?
Roger,
I want to tell you something before you answer.
Yes, sir.
I've asked this year will be my 40th year here. The answer never works out that you're going to give me. I got an idea why it's back there, but I want to hear what you're going to say.
Well, I'll tell you, and I'll be honest with you. I fought with Roger a little bit about...
That's a lot of trouble, too.
I fought with Roger a little bit about trying to push the building forward, but I think he's right. There's some circulation issues. The site tapers down into the front, so it brings those setbacks together, and it makes it harder to get the building set up there. And then also, it really creates some issues with our drive-through traffic. Because if we take this bank of parking and then we put it in the back, we have so many of our members and our staff that have to cross these 3 lanes of drive-through traffic and then come around to get into the bank. So that is really the driving force, but I don't know if there's any other points, Roger, you want to make to that effect?
Well, for the record, you said I might be right this time, so we just want to put that out. But that's a very good answer on your part, Jay. Nice job with being a site engineer tonight.
Thank you.
The original property early was 3 acres, right? 3.2 acres. And this is 1 acre. So, I mean, there's property there that you wouldn't have that pinch point, right?
The original was this size, then they went to the 3 acre, and now they're back to this size.
Well, but the pinch wouldn't change. The pinch is because of the driveway,
shape of the lot.
which is there.
Correct. And then around back, they have to go to the Kohler Center, so that's why the
So the
pitch
property
changed.
is narrow.
The pinch is the point, and Jeff stopped.
Yeah, I just want to, because as Pat said, this isn't his first time with that comment. It started way back with Route 6 Retail, actually, early on. And the unfortunate part about what's going on here is that the entrance was fixed by the nature of Mayapack Village Center's entrance. So, we had to align with that, and we have to align with that with DOT standards. And when you do that and bring in the necessary egress lanes, our property line to the north is fixed. So, as you can see, it does taper down. We did look at different options when Pat made that same comment over 2 years ago. I can tell you that I reviewed 4 different plans with Roger where he tried to move it forward, but between, the necessary alignment which now exists, the property line which is fixed, and then the necessary location of the entrance drive. We can't come off of this driveway until we're back a certain distance, or else the queuing will interfere with the movement. So when you take all that into consideration, we landed in the same place with Route 6 Retail, and we thought, we had convinced you at that time, and hopefully these guys can convince you again.
Well, the only other way would be to put the drive-through on that side, and who wants to look at a drive-through?
Well,
It's that. Go ahead.
one other thought I had was this, somebody just pointed out about more land there. If the lot was different, and I don't want to go backwards, but if the lot was a little larger to the back, could the whole thing push back as it's configured and get more green up toward the front?
Yeah, and the short answer is no, because as Rich pointed out, there's a DEC wetland in the back. There's a 100-foot control zone, which in itself isn't a problem until you come to DEP world, where you cannot put an impervious surface within 100 feet. Yeah, and the whole reason we've cited kind of a magic line back here is to preserve that right for that driveway. And if you look at, the plans we did with showing the driveway location, which I know Pat had asked for with the last application, we have the driveway right next to that buffer. So you basically have the wetland, you have the impervious setback restriction, you have the future driveway, and then you guys got the back of these guys. So again, it's just a bunch of things we don't control that really have created the shape of the lot.
Hey, Jeff? I wasn't very much interested in it, but now I'm very interested in it. How quick it got you out of that seat of that talking about it. So it means that everybody's been talking about it. Correct?
Correct.
That building where it's at. And there's no other inkling or anything else that you see that might, 20 years down the road, that might interest somebody. But that building's sitting there. Okay. That's it.
Maybe we can take some time and work on that green in the front on Route 6, maybe we can address that.
Yeah, I think that's a little skimpy there.
Give us a little pizzazz there.
Sure. We were aware of trying to, provide some landscaping. And to your point, we kind of did like a tiered approach with trying to get that interior island a little more robust as we go back into the site. So, but we can most certainly look at some additional landscaping.
The
along
challenge
frontage.
always with that, Dave, is you're near an access point, so you're infecting site distances, and DOT has a lot to say about that.
Years from there.
But we can,
And it's maybe something that we can take care of.
Correct.
Yeah.
How much are you above Route 6?
I was gonna ask you.
Elevation change.
Off the top of my head, we may be like a few feet.
Basically, this is higher than them. I think the elevation here in round numbers is 70. They're at like 72 or 73, but this is up at 76 or 78. So it's relatively, you can see that the site's been padded out. It's not at its final grade, but it's very close to it, so you can get a very good feel for it if you go by it. Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah, it's been leveled out, so you should just,
Going out of town.
It's kind of like I always wondered how that lake stayed on the side of that hill. I thought there was a hill up back there, but it's flat.
It's always a good-looking building at Hudsonville.
This has to go through Vincent, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, are you guys aware of that process?
Yes, Jeff had informed me a little bit of
That's just a referral from this board, is that right?
there's a permit associated with it and an escrow will need to be posted.
Okay, so we get that through Rose?
Yeah, and so, on Tuesday.
Next week,
that's
yeah.
the exhaustion effort.
What you gotta do is wait till Vince get close to it and see what he comes up with.
The adjacent building, the bank, visual architecture, I forget, is that red brick or?
I believe that building has a brick base, but it's siding.
Signing. Putnam Savings.
Oh, the one on the left?
It does, it has a brick base.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it.
Are they done there, Mike? Done?
Done. Been done.
And they've received,
CEOs, everything's done?
Pat?
This is one that needs to go to the zoning board, Mr. Chairman, for the parking space variance.
So just a sidebar on the parking space thing very quickly. So it seems like every applicant that comes in has to go for a parking size variance. Is there a way that we can,
So our parking space size is large. So many communities, what they're seeking is the standard for many communities. So it's a decision we should make as a planning board. Do we think we're sending too many people to the zoning board for variance that they get? If so, our codes probably needs to be adjusted.
Or maybe somebody tweak it so that there's some language where, you know,
Gives
when
us
you're
some
adding more spaces
discretion.
like this and it's a slam dunk, that you don't have to, just thought, this is just sidebar.
I don't think, Mike can tell you, but I don't think there's been an instance where the zoning board has denied the parking space size variance. I think they've granted it just about universally.
Almost on ShopRite.
But they gave it to us.
Gave it to 'em.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare.
And that's different, I think ShopRite was one that you want some.
Cars get damaged.
This one, you know, you're adding more spaces, right, you have more spaces than you need, right? And 9 by 8 needs
So
to be
that-
pretty standard anyway, but if there'd be some language in there, some flexibility where you wouldn't have to send them there, I think
So
that's.
the issue would come, now is when it's an issue, when there's snow on the ground, because that's when these parking lots become challenging. So that's when the couple of feet matters a lot. But as soon as the snow melts, it's not a problem anymore.
I have a question about this traffic flow and so forth. There's a light there now on 6, and when a vehicle is coming out of both banks and stuff and queuing up to go out, I don't know, what's the distance from the egress at 6? I'm wondering if there's gonna be an issue with people are gonna make a right on red there because they can, right?
Right,
And
yes.
Are people coming out of the bank, you're gonna be stuck in the middle of the street if there's 4 cars in that, I don't know what the, going out.
You mean at the light,
Yeah,
being stacked at the light?
There's 4 or 5 cars there, and, you know, are we gonna have a traffic jam, so to speak, if there's a...
Oh, okay.
Anybody can-
Yeah, that's actually a good question. As part of the DOT permitting for the signal, if you recall, Mazer Associates actually ran a bunch of traffic analysis, and at the time, their study included the bank, 5,000 square foot of retail on the Route 6 retail site, as well as the potential traffic coming from the Kohler Center, because they actually needed that volume to meet the warrant on the light. I think we discussed this at the time, if you go way, way back. So they looked at an increased flow of traffic relative to the signal design, the queuing, all of that. So that has been taken into consideration, and again, that was the basis for the approval of the signal by the DOT.
It's kind of counterintuitive, Carl, but they needed the volume to justify the light.
To control the traffic,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess the only other piece of that then is, you know, I think you had mentioned the sight lines and
You
stuff.
you would think we'd
Folks
take that
coming out of
attention to
your
that.
side, are they gonna be able to see people coming in, because that's the near
So is
side
that building there? So
for them, for people coming in, you
That's-
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not now, because anybody going in there now, they're gonna be going into one of those 2 locations, but when it connects through, maybe those shouldn't be trees, you know?
Well, we could look at some lower type of plantings in that area, but then that also, you know, you want to keep it clear of your sight line, so sometimes the tree's not necessarily bad as long as, you know, you get some height to it. So, we can look at that, and if you'd like to see a sight triangle or something on there, we can put that. But, it's a relatively straight shot as we come through here, so we should have pretty good, clear line of sight through that corridor.
What's the intention on the wall, some sort of unilock type thing?
Yeah, we would look at a unilock or a ready rock type of wall system, and then provide landscaping in that space between, so it'll be a nice looking wall system.
Aesthetically pleasing, not giant,
I'll have Vincent look at that too, if you,
not giant orange blocks.
Yeah, I would have show up somewhere.
absolutely.
We can point to some of the other branches that we've done
Move this on
for some
before
examples.
Vince-
Some of them can
before
get
Vince
very
says this?
industrial
That
looking.
Vincent won't change.
Yeah,
You don't want one of these blocks.
understood.
Geez, I can't say that.
But,
I'll get in trouble with that one.
we have,
I actually
no,
think
we
where
have a
the
unilock wall.
ATM or the drive-through is will help the traffic flow, right? Because there's a lot, the way that's situated is gonna be really good for the traffic. Yeah, 'cause it's in the back there.
And the other variance on this, Mike, is for reduction of the building size, right?
I'm sorry?
The other variance is for building size reduction, right?
That's
Actually,
correct.
it's two,
It's a minimum 5,000 square foot.
counterintuitive, right?
Again,
You're thinking you gotta have a, right, it's supposed to be 5,000 square foot or bigger,
Yep.
Makes no
it's
sense.
smaller, right?
Makes no sense.
Kind of an oddball, and it's another one, we've done that a couple times now too, right?
Yeah, we have.
And another one to put on the list somewhere, if you
It's on the
we
list.
can-
That's not,
But we like when it weeds out what was that thing somebody wanted to do? trailer for the,
That's
a
right.
food trailer.
It has
Works out.
worked in our advantage from
The
time
old,
to time.
those old Kodak film things.
You remember those?
Kiosk.
Still in those parking lots.
Jack in the Box.
Can we get a motion to send this to the ZBA?
I'll make a motion to refer this to the ZBA.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Stamp one of your plans with the lights.
Okay. No, we don't make motions to send to the ECB.
Yeah, but.
Thank you.
You have to stamp it denied,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
If you bring up a copy, we'll
Just have them.
Okay,
use
that's
stamp
just
sheet.
the rendering? Do you, I mean, do you want to
The
do
site-
it?
the actual site plan.
Do you have,
I
yeah,
have an 11 by 17 of that?
do
or-
the big one.
Okay, it's
so-
just, it's,
He's not gonna copy that, though. That doesn't have the lines up. Yeah, he doesn't want that. Do the 11 by 17 one. It's easier to copy anyway.
And they just have to make sure you bring them the same document.
I'll make sure.
You're gonna
You're
take
gonna
it
take
to
it,
the
and you're
ZBA.
gonna copy it for the ZBA application.
This way, there's no monkey business, and they've got the exact drawing that we can, even though Harold did it upside down.
Another one?
And they'll schedule an appointment, Rich.
When you look,
with,
Vincent,
Vince.
so,
when you look at this, is this right side up?
there you go. Yeah, Rose will set it up with Vincent and get him taken care of.
Can we make sure that when Vincent reviews it, he also reviews the retaining wall?
Absolutely, it's a good point.
Even the landscaping in the front.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's usually pretty good at broadening his scope.
Yeah, I think I have your email. So I'd be shooting an email, I'll send you my numbers. You know, guys, I'll send you a memo too. I have all the memos.
Wanna give Jeff his too? Thank you.
Where else don't they-
Okay.
we'll see.
You know where McDonald's is?
Yeah.
Behind McDonald's.
Motion.
We have the minutes.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes.
Oh, minutes, yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'll offer the meeting minutes of November 29, 2017. I've read them, and I believe them to be accurate.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have two sets of minutes? Just that?
Just the one.
I think you had just one.
I think that's almost clears up of a business.
You wanted to nominate some members to meet on
ShopRite.
They're still out front if you'd like to have.
Yes. I've been sitting trying to think of the,
Chairman says hang out, we hang out.
I think these fellow, whoever is the two members.
You want to adjourn first?
Yeah, I think we should. Can we make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
We do it till he cuts it off.